Well, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us on our video uh, interview here. We're super excited. It's the first one of a series that we'll have with conversations with superintendents and education leaders from around the country. I'm super excited to be here with our partner and our friend, Dr. Jeff Horton from Southwest Metro 288. Super excited that he agreed to be with us today. Would love to hear a little bit more about his journey. Just for reference here, my name is Daniel Bernstein. I'm the CEO of Teachally. And Dr. Horton, thanks again for agreeing to be on our interview, on our little video podcast. So I'd like to kind of hear a little bit more about you and your story, right? So let's just keep it open. Give us the story of how you started in education. What was the path that you took before you became a superintendent?
Wow, that brings me back, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love the work that you're doing over there at Teach Ally, and it's a pleasure to be on the show. So thank you for that. Um, how did I get into education? I didn't have a direct path. Both my family members were educators, and to be truthful, they were not a fan of administrators. The common talk around the kitchen table was what was wrong with administrators. Um, so my path was actually very different up until probably about my last year of high school. Um, I got involved in doing some youth coaching and ended up doing a little bit of coaching with both my father and my brother when I was in high school, who they each were working with high school age students too, both coaching hockey, different teams. And so I had an opportunity to start working with people there and youth, and I still remember the experience actually, and it actually had nothing to do with the fact that I was coaching, but it had everything to do with working with people. Um, and the team I was helping my brother coach at that time, was a junior gold hockey team. If you know anything about junior gold, these are the young men who didn't make the high school hockey team. They're seniors who didn't make the varsity. They might be players that didn't make the JV team or something like that. So we were coaching this team, and so they're kind of the other team, the forgotten high school students, if you will. Um, and we had been working on some things in practice, and we're playing against our rivals. And I still remember it was going to be the last shift of the game, and I had the next line coming up, and they'd been doing some things in practice that we've been working on. I'm like, I think we're ready to do this, and so I pulled out my clipboard. I drew up the play that we're going to do to break out of the zone, how we were going to come through the neutral zone, how we were going to set up an offensive opportunity for a great shot and an opportunity to score. And they went out on the ice, and I watched them break out perfectly. They came through the zone, they went into the offensive zone, and they scored the game winning goal. Um, I still remember they went out with 1 minute and 12 seconds left on the clock. And I watched them go celebrate in the corner, and I'm like, they just executed like a varsity level um, system to perfection, and it won them the game. And just watching the excitement they had about the success that they had in how they had pushed themselves, and the excitement to see themselves achieve, it didn't have anything to do with just me. It was everything about them. It was about how they were being successful. And that's what made me think, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to work with students. I want to work with people, and I want to help that feeling happen in other people. Whether it be coaching, whether it be as an educator, a teacher, at any level, I want to create that feeling in others. And that was really exciting for me. And so I knew I wanted to then go into education. The ideas of being an engineer or a meteorologist and all the other things I had went away. I had no idea what I wanted to teach. I didn't know how it was going to go, but that was the moment where I decided, working with kids was something that I really wanted to do.
No, that's wonderful. So it's a definitely mission led passion story for you. But the path to become an educator and then the path to superintendency is also a different one, right? So when you became an educator, uh, what made you feel, okay, look, I really want to become the change agent on a much bigger scale, and what kind of led you down that path as well?
I never wanted to be a superintendent. That was not something that I thought I was going to do. Um, and I think, I was talking to a pastor one time, and he related being a superintendent somewhat to being a pastor, in that it can be a calling. Like, you get called to go places. And that really resonated with me. And I'm like, yeah, you don't really pick your district. Your district picks you. Like, you find each other. There's a calling, and you're called to serve. And I think that goes back to even that first experience. And I couldn't have told you that as a 17-year-old, but what I can reflect on and understand is that it was the call to serve. And so my pathway was, I've always been a pretty hard worker. I did about 8 years worth of college credits in 4 years. I just was go, 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 20 credit semesters, 18 credit summer schools. So double majored, minored, got a master's degree immediately right through college. Um, and then I started working. And it's interesting because my first job, I applied for a position, I received it. And then they said, after they offered me a position, would you like to work as a paraprofessional for the rest of the year? I'm 20 something years old, and I would love to have a job. So absolutely, I would love nothing more than to be a paraprofessional. So of course, I said yes. And I spent a lot of time in the hallways, and got to meet some students who were frequent visitors in the hallway. And eventually, they sent me on a field trip with some students that were within a school program. And these were students who, they'd had some tough experiences. And they actually were the ones that pointed out and said, you know what, when we watch you work with students, we really like what we see, and we think you can work with some of our students that have the most amount of need. Would you be willing to go back to school, add some additional licensure, but also work in a combination of both general ed and special education? So I think before I started, I took one class on how to administer the Woodcock-Johnson assessment, which has absolutely nothing to do with teaching a classroom. And away I went. But again, it was that idea of serving others. It was about helping them be successful. And I really, as challenging as that first year was, I really appreciated it. I learned so much, and I kept, I think, getting better at that. And that kind of set me on my path in both the kind of the general education world and special education world, as I was working in both. And that continued to happen throughout my career as a teacher. But still, I didn't think about doing anything on a larger scale. But I did love connecting with students. That was really important to me. And I think I think we developed really strong professional student-teacher relationships. And I was able to help them figure some things out in school, and hopefully in life as well. My journey to administration, you know, um, it really was very organic. And then really it was other people seeing something in me that made me take those steps. I still remember I was starting to do some work on professional learning communities, and I was doing some database systems that I had been working on. And it just seemed to be clicking with what the school needed at that time. And I had this amazing principal. Maybe I would still call him a mentor to this day. Uh, Really just helped me. I want to say this. I don't think he ever answered a question that I asked him, but he encouraged me to figure that out on my own with guided support. And I watched how he led and how he empowered me to. I'd call him with these complex problems, and he would just help me process through it. He didn't give me the answers, and he helped me grow. And when I saw the impact I was having on some folks around me, I'm like, and the impact he had, I thought, you know what? I think this might be something I want to do. So I walked down the hallway to another teacher, and I said to her, "You want to get your doctorate with me?" And she just about fell out of her chair. And this is a very, very intelligent person. And she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, let's just do it, like, class for class. Let's do it together." And so away we went. And And we went at a fast pace, just kind of like I told you earlier, for my undergraduate and graduate degree. And we we just started kind of hitting our stride, and both of us ended up moving into administration. And um, that was kind of my journey. And so I went from assistant executive director and special ed director to a principal to another director of student services and special ed to assistant superintendent, and then now superintendent again here at Southwest Metro. So um, again, never planned any of those things to happen. They just, it's kind of funny how you get called to places and how those doors open. And really, all I can say is I had amazing people around me to support my growth and encourage me along the way. And just very thankful for them that they put their trust in me to try to do good things for students and communities. And um, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, sometimes we're driven by a calling we don't quite understand, and that's the wonderful thing about when you're in a place where you realize that you're actually meant to be there. And so, in the case of Southwest Metro, you're clearly meant to be there. You've done some transformational things in the district. Uh, so, Jeff would love to kind of understand that journey, like what it was like when you first got there, the transformations that you felt you needed to make for the benefit of obviously your staff, your teachers, but ultimately, like you said, it reaches the students. That's for their benefit, so that they can have a better experience and better education and become better people. So that whole transformation journey in itself is remarkable. So I'd love to hear about that as well.
Maybe one of the biggest things I've learned over the years is that listening is one of the most important things you can do. Communities have so much talent and so much uh, just power and um, just passion, and there's so many great people in a community, and that exists with our staff, it's with our students, it's within your leadership teams. Like, there are so many people that are amazing. And so really I feel that part of what I do is really just listening to people, and again empowering them to be their best self, to be their best community. And I just try to help show them a way to do that, show them a pathway to do that. And I think that's been kind of the last, oh, I don't, the last half decade, decade of my career has really been about that. And what we're doing at Southwest Metro really is just it's an outcome of what people told me they were looking to do. And so I went in the first 100 days. I did about a thousand engagements with folks, and I just listened, and I just said, "Hey, what are the things that are going on that you want to tell me?" And usually for about 25 minutes, they would just empty. They had so much they wanted to share and tell somebody. And that was great. And I really appreciate that. Like, I really take those listening sessions to heart. And I still do them actually twice a year with our staff and with community, with leaders around our area. I try to get out at least twice a year to do some in-depth, like one-on-one group listening sessions. And I get great information from them. So really it was those ideas that said, okay, after listening to all those things, and then I asked them, what are the three positives about Southwest Metro? What are two opportunities for growth? And what's one goal we could accomplish together this year? That really framed my first year. And really, it started us down a path to say what needs to come after that. And what I learned quickly from folks is we need to kind of just take stock of where we are. We had a strategic plan. Um, and for whatever reason, it just didn't seem to connect. It just didn't, it just, we did it. And then it just didn't like get fully implemented for whatever reason. And that's no fault or criticism of anybody's. It's just hey, this is kind of where we're at. So let's take stock of that and figure out what that means. So from there, we did 6 different needs assessments. We said, hey, all right, we need to look at some things. So let's take a look at teaching and learning, right? Like, let's look at our academics. What's going on there? What do we need to do to support student learning? Communication was a huge thing I heard. So let's do a communication assessment. Let's understand what good communication looks like. Let's understand what our community needs. and then let's go execute that. We took a look at HR, like what are our hiring practice? 33% of the jobs in my district were open when I started. That's crazy, and we had not been fully staffed in what I'm told is probably close to a decade. Um, and that hurts students. That hurts our current staff, right? Staff are covering each other's preps. They're exhausted, and that's what they were telling me. So we're like, okay, we have to think of some different ways to address that. So let's look at our HR practices and figure out what's going on there. We took a look at our facilities. We had significant facility needs. Well, how do we do that? And how are we going to fund those opportunities? And what are we going to do with that? So we took a look at that. We looked at safety and security. How can we improve that? And then it comes down to budget, right? Like, what can we afford to do? And we have to take a really good look at our budget and say, all right, what are our priorities? And all districts have money. I disagree when districts say they don't have anything. You do. It's about strategically using your resources in the way that to be whatever it is you want to be. Your budget's a reflection of your priorities. So, what are our priorities? And then, what do we need to do to accomplish that? And sometimes that means we're going to stop doing this over here, or we need to realign this, or we need to adjust that. And so we did that work. Um, and then from there, we asked our community, let's do a portrait of a graduate. When someone leaves Southwest Metro, what are the skills you want that person to have? And after all that's done, we took that data, we analyzed it, we put it together, we worked with our board on that, we worked with our community. Here's what we're seeing. And in the end, we ended up with a new strategic plan. And we didn't plan on starting that out at the beginning of the year, but as we were going through the process, we said, you know what? It's more than just an update. It's more than just taking it off the shelf and dusting off. We really just need to redo this. And that was really exciting for me. So that gave me great direction. And that's really what guides my work now. So what it's not, I don't really know that it's me. It's just taking the community's ideas and trying to set that up in a pathway that can be incrementally worked on, so we can succeed together. And it comes with bumps. It comes with change. I don't want to negate that. And that's part of organizational change, and that's part of transformation. Is that you will feel some discomfort going through that process. I just shared with my board. If you think like a graph, when you look at organizational change, it's not. This isn't new to me saying it. This is out there. You hit here, and then you hit a dip because you're going through the change, and that's what you do. And then you start coming up the other side as implementation keeps going, and that's where things get better. But it takes a little time, and you have to have the courage and the fortitude to say, I'm going to be transformational, but that means that today I might feel discomfort in order to get to where I want to go 6 months from now. And we have to be willing to support staff and communities through that little dip there, but also not lose sight that this is where we're trying to get to. Too often I see that people look for instant gratification and they sacrifice the long-term success of themselves or an organization. And we have to be willing to feel a little discomfort, to work hard and feel some of that, to then have that success at the end. Maybe you have a favorite movie, right? Um, I'm not sure what people like, but if you want to go way back in time and think about something like Rudy or something like that, or any great success story, you got pick your movie, right? The team has to go through transformation, right? And they have to get uncomfortable and things get tough for a little bit, but at the end, everybody's excited, and that's that. Education and organizations need to go through that too. Um,
Absolutely. And what I really appreciated is that you didn't start out by trying to fix everything. You started out by listening and creating a space where it was safe for your entire staff to have those conversations with you. But as you're making these changes, Jeff, what was your lighthouse? Like, what was the thing that you were trying to, like, sometimes, the big thing in leadership and organization is, thinking about it like you're out at sea. You don't know where land is, but then you've got a lighthouse, and that light from the lighthouse is always guiding you toward the shore. So what was your lighthouse in all this transformation that you were doing?
I'm gonna go back to the community. I'm gonna go back to the voice of the students, the voice of the staff. Really it was really their thoughts. I mean, they were really the oars, they were the voice, they were the motor, the engine that were just was telling me where to go. I was just trying to steer us in a direction that made sense. Like, it was they understood what we needed to do. Um, I didn't have to come in and say you need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Really, what the organization needed was just someone to listen and then put it together. Um, so I don't know that I had a single lighthouse. I think it was just really when I needed guidance, I looked at our community and I said, what is it we need to be doing? And when they offered things that maybe couldn't be done, and I would just be very open, like, I don't know that we can achieve that, or at least not on this timeline. That might need to come later. Um, but how can we put that? How can we not lose that idea and put it somewhere? That might be 5 years from now, right? It may not be today. Um, and that's okay. Yep, we got to go through some discomfort before we get there.
Right, right. So when you made the bridge between, okay, you know what the needs are, you know what the decisions need to be made, how were you able to assess what you needed from both a staffing perspective, from a partnership perspective, from a technology perspective to make that change happen?
Well, what was really interesting about our process is that, in addition to just talking to our staff and community and our students about what they wanted, we also showed them the research. So as we did those needs assessments, we actually showed that to them. And we did a lot of interactions. We had around 38,000 different thoughts exchanged around our needs assessments and the ideas that they wanted. This was active live conversations going back and forth, people rating each other's thoughts, ongoing communication, not just a focus group like we traditionally do, where you have one person representing a group. Literally, all people could engage in this process. And I think that's what was really powerful, is that everybody's able to engage, and not just once. It wasn't a survey we sent off. We used some AI tools to get people's thoughts, and then they could interact and have conversations back and forth with each other and rank each other's thoughts. But we did that around the research, because if we knew what to do already, we would have already been doing it,
Right.
right? We needed to assess ourselves to understand, here's where we are today. This is what best practice looks like. Okay, so let's come up with a plan to get there, and let's ask our staff, where are your priorities? And we did that. This is where we want to get. This is what the research says we should do. So this should be what we're doing. If this is best practice, that shouldn't we do that? And everyone says, yeah. Okay, well, here's where we are. How do we incrementally build towards that? And that's what the journey we're on right now is. Some things we were able to get there quickly, other things we're incrementally building towards, and we just have to keep working together, um, and listening, because as we're on that journey, this is why I like to do listening sessions at least a couple times a year, is because I also need to understand how this path is affecting you, because there is going to be some discomfort along the way. And while I can't solve every piece of that, at least I know, and I can try to do the best I can to mitigate that and support folks along the way as we get there. That's really important to do. And so we have to do those check-ins with people, and it's more than a survey. Um, too often we just say, well, we have so many teachers and so many staff, I can't possibly get to everybody. You got to find a way. You got to get back. You got to have some face-to-face conversations, and you've got to put in the time. And yeah, it's hard work. It takes a ton of time, but you need to do that for community and staff. And if you can't do it by yourself, then you need a team of people to do it, or structure or schedule something differently. Your schedule is your own. So we need to prioritize listening. We need to check in with folks, and we need to look at the research and frame our conversations around what is best for students and what is best practice. What do we know to work? And then how do we get there together?
Right, right. So when you were ready to make the kind of the changes and the decisions that would actually make those transformational changes in your district, when you looked at technology specifically, like when obviously the staffing aspect is very very important, but you also looked at there needs to be support, and the support obviously has to be from staff, but then the staff also need to be supported. So that support, when you looked at how did you build that, what was that? What was that process like?
Well, we're in a really exciting time, for me at least. When I think of the power of some of the AI tools that are coming out right now, um, and my perspective would be that if you're not utilizing AI in your practice, then you're missing you're missing out. Students are missing out. You're missing out. You're not as effective as you maybe could be. We need to be thinking about how we can work differently. I'm going to think about like our Gen Z workers. They have a very different idea about work than Gen X, right? Gen X, put your nose to the grindstone, up working all weekend, all day, all night, hard work equals success type mentality. Our Gen Z people are like, I only work when I have to because there's all these other things that I want to do in life, and that's okay. But how do we adapt for a workforce for a generation that has different ideas, and how can we create better work-life balance for our employees? Um, and I think COVID really opened up that conversation a lot, especially with the ideas of remote work and online, and it's a different dynamic out there. So if we can find ways to improve the quality of instruction while reducing staff time and workloads, that's a win-win. And so, absolutely, when I looked at, we had over a third of our jobs open in the district. We had 69% of our staff within their first 3 years in the organization. We had historical turnover of 25 to 30% with our staff, and our administrators are also turning over at a similar rate of 25+% over the past 5 years. And so we look at that, and you're like, there's a lot of new. And our organization had been growing too, which is just a whole nother dynamic. So, how do you, where do you go and how do you help people? And I think the use of AI tools really helps model and frame what some great practice can look like. And you'll very rarely hear me say you should just use an AI tool and not bring in the human piece to it. So I'm very clear about that. The rule I kind of follow is the 80-20. Like AI might be able to take you 80% of the way there. You got to take it the other 20. And so don't just throw something in and say I'm done. You got to still work it, but it's a thought partner, it's a friend, it's a colleague, it's an educational, intelligent AI something in whatever it is you're trying to do that can help you in your work. And so if I can say, Daniel, I have a student, Daniel. He is an EL student, so I need a lesson that meets him where he's at. Also, here's the standards I need to work on. And plus, there's some things that really help him learn. So I want to differentiate it to do this. On an individual basis as an educator, maybe you can sit down and do that, but now do that for 30 students
Right.
or do that for 30 students times 5 or 6 classes. How do you do that? Like, we understand, like, I think all educators would say, like, absolutely, I want to do that, which is why they want to, like, working on low ratios or 1-to-1 is exciting because we can do what we all wanted to do. And I think what AI can bring to the table is allows us to do the things that educators have always wanted to do, but haven't been able to do because of time or other constraints, or maybe not quite there yet in my career and my journey. So I get really excited about how AI can support teachers and in turn students, because our teachers and our educators on the ground working in classrooms make the biggest difference in outcomes for students. It is not the superintendent. It is not me. I try to create the framework to help you be successful. You're the ones that really make it. So hats off to our educators, our paraeducators, and everybody on the ground doing that important work.
Absolutely, and the outcomes have been tremendous. I mean, you've closed the gap in in kind of the open positions to just about zero, right? You've made your teachers successful. Your new teacher attrition is obviously at an all time low. So all these things have been again, the result of very rapid transformation. But the rapid transformation, that's the critical point that you've mentioned, is the result of a whole bunch of listening that you did and a whole bunch of actually understanding before you went into that kind of that rapid transformation stage. Because without that, I think you wouldn't have been as successful as you have. And I feel like our partnership story with Teachally is really about that, listening to each other and understanding each other, probably more so than any other types of kind of engagements that I've had over the years. It's a 2.5 year uh, partnership that we've basically worked best to listen to you and the needs of your educators and the needs of your administrators, uh, and to really deliver something that actually works specifically to address the goals that you needed. And that conversation, that listening, I think is super critical. It doesn't really matter if you're working at a tool or something else. There's nothing that comes off the shelf and said, look, it's going to be perfect for me because everybody's different. All schools are different. So this I value so deeply the conversation and the engagement that we've had in building building out that system that works for you guys, and it's going to deliver the long term results. In that I think are starting to actually bear fruit already.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the things I'm really excited about that Teach Alley brings is whether we have teachers that are coming from another country, like so many people do nowadays. There's a lot of international hiring happening. We see that we're just seeing more people moving. It's easier to move nowadays too, than it
Right.
used to be, right? It's easier to pick up and move a little bit. We see people job hopping a little bit more, and that's just what it is nowadays. We have to create a system that understands that. And I'm all for teacher retention and people staying, don't get me wrong, but every district's talking about, how do we retain teachers? And the truth is that they have the opportunity to leave and go places, and that is their right as an employee, and that's okay. So we have to, while we're trying to keep retention rates good, we also have to just accept the fact that we're going to see some of that. And how do we welcome people in and help them be successful and not feel like they're starting their first year of education all over again? um, and how do we, as we continue to get asked to do more and more, and our educators are asked to do more and more in their day to meet the needs of all learners and to close gaps, like how do you even start to have that conversation? And how do you do that work when you have a single prep period and a little time before or after school? In one of my districts, we actually did two prep times. We gave them, we found a way to do that with no increase to cost, where we had a prep period, and then we gave them a second one. And part of that was supposed to be research and development around AI and using AI tools in their classroom to allow them time to explore. Like you might see in the private sector, right? You get an hour or so much time a week just to go create and try and do. And like, why aren't we doing that? Um, so yeah, so a tool like Teach Ally really helps support staff, I feel like, in engaging in meaningful work, productive work at a reduction of time. It takes them to another level in their work, and yet it takes work off their plate at the same time. So they can maybe be in a better space to work on something else, to work with students, to be present with their families. It's my hope that every time an educator walks into a class period, that they can be their best selves. Like, why would I not want to set you up? Think of like an athlete. Like, they go through pregame, they stretch, they warm up, we do all these things so they can be their best selves in those moments they need to be, right? Why wouldn't we want our educators to be the same? So if a tool like Teach Ally can help them get to that, I count me in. I want to learn more.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that, again, for us, that is our lighthouse, right? To be able to give the teachers the ability to uh, to deliver better instruction. Better instruction doesn't mean a better lesson plan. Let's just be honest, right? Better instruction means how can I connect with that kid? How can I make them successful and have the time to learn about them and to be able to deliver the type of one-on-one interaction, or as close to that as that they would need to be able to be successful in the long term. And that is by far the North Star for us, to be able to kind of get them to success, get the students to success. It's great that the teachers have the time, but it's also how they use the time, right? So now they have the time to be able to deliver the lesson planning and all these other things. It's all high quality, it's all standards aligned, it's all built into the system. But then what's the next step? Is the next step now that you disengage and you're just, no, you're actually, teachers are also driven by passion and driven by mission. So give them the opportunity to get that passion and mission directly to the student, get that student to be successful, give them the time that they're not so overwhelmed that they can't talk to anyone. They should be able to be talking to folks now that they have those tools to be able to give the students the one-on-one interaction that they deserve.
And teachers work hard. They're, bell if you're working bell to bell, you're you're tired. You're tired, and you sit down on your prep and you just need a minute just to, ooh, like, all right. And then the day ends and the students are gone. You need a second just to, oh. And then you got that superintendent who scheduled some meeting after school, so you can't work on your stuff then, right? Or whatever it may be, or in the morning. And you got those pressures on you, like, where's the time to prepare? And it's hard, it is hard. And we keep asking folks to do more, but we don't always give them the time and the resources. And I feel that Teach LA is a tool that can really, really help with that. It gives teachers back time to get back to the things that we want to be doing in education. How do we still, when a student already knows something, how do I enrich that? And when they don't know it, how do I remediate and help them reteach and move forward, right? How do I help how do I help all students grow? No educator wants to see any student in their classroom not be successful. I firmly believe that, but the stresses and the barriers that they face on a day-to-day basis can definitely weigh them down and make them feel like I'm struggling. I'm not feeling successful. I went here because I love kids and I just feel like I'm drowning in what I'm being asked to do. And it's hard. Public education is really hard. I always say that the hardest thing about public education is that you have to serve all students. But the greatest thing about public education is that we get to serve all students. It's the opportunity to serve everyone, and that is wonderful. Um, and that's the strength of us, and that's what makes us continually challenged to get better. And that's some of the greatest beauty in our work. And let's prepare our staff to be successful, and let's give them the tools they need to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I do want to shout out this new tool that you're building for, again, when you're looking, thinking about how to make the teacher successful. You're also looking to have them, self assess and get better and better and better, right? So it's not just delivering the things that they need to do through Teach Ally, so that they can have the ability to grow on their own, as well as have the time to be able to interact and really, really deliver the high quality instruction. But it's also the training that you have. So you've got something here that you're piloting that I think is truly very, very exciting as well.
Yeah, this idea is almost exactly a year old right now, and I can't believe we're here talking about it today. And I gotta give a shout out to Abron and Miriam over there at Create Labs, and then Josh and Justin at ProServa, who were some of our partners in this work as we were kind of developing this. Um, it's interesting because the AI technology really advanced with the idea, and had we had the idea a year earlier, it wouldn't have been possible. It's just that the technology and the concept matched. And so, kind of going back to our data with the high turnover with administrators, the number of new staff, like how do you help those on the ground working in the classrooms be the most successful, right? And they need support, they need coaching, they need feedback. Not that they're bad, but we can all get better. I can get better. I'll be the first to stand up and say I am not perfect. I try to get a little better every day, and some days I get a little better than others, right? But that's growth. And so let's help our educators do that. But with 25% plus my administrators being new on an annual basis historically, and with the staff turnover at 25 plus percent, and then that number of 69% in your first 3 years, is how do you even get enough people? Where are your trained leaders to help coach? Like, you don't even have that, plus the investment and the cost, and then to even bring them in, you got to train them. I mean, it's daunting. So yeah, we created a new tool. It's pretty simple. We take a camera. We prefer using the Owl camera. We use multiple technologies, but we set it in the classroom, and we allow that tool to capture the video and the audio that's happening. We then take that video file and we load it into Evelyn. Evelyn is the name of our tool that we created, and it's an AI tool. And what Evelyn does is it strips out the audio into chunks and separates it out. It then does the same thing with the video. It analyzes it, brings it back together, and applies it to a teacher evaluation rubric. And a teacher could use those for themselves. How am I doing? A teacher could say, I want to try a new lesson because I want to challenge myself, or maybe I've been told by my principal I'm not doing very well. I want to do some practice in between. An administrator can do this. Administrator can use Evelyn. Go in there, do your observation. Evelyn will help you and assist you in your evaluation. And I'll tell you, not all administrators are highly trained at evaluating. They don't go through a specific training for that. That's a very intensive, specific thing. So on all those levels, you can use Evelyn. And what we found is that it reduces the workload by 90%. It takes hours of work and turns into minutes. It literally will take that entire evaluation, it scores it, it provides feedback, it provides quotes, it timestamps it, it scores it. And uh, it can hear and see literally everything that's going on. It knows if a student raises their hand. It knows how the work on the wall relates to that lesson. When there's 20 students talking in a classroom, having conversations about the lesson, I can pick out maybe 2 or 3 to try to listen to, and I can watch a couple. This tool can see all students at all times. It can pick up all the voices at all times and understand that, put it together. So it's doing things that I can't do or other administrators can't do. We actually tested it. We actually took a highly trained administrator, someone who trains other administrators on how to evaluate, and we had a competition. We said, go do 25, 50 evaluations and see how you score. And we did the same thing with the AI tool, Evelyn, in that same room. We found that they scored within with 7/100ths of 1 point. They scored within each other across all evaluations. And generally, when there was disagreement on an area that was scored, Evelyn was the one that prevailed because it could just see and hear more and had more evidence to suggest, yes, this was very good, or maybe this did need some more work. So yeah, we're really excited about that. We've been rolling it out. We just started a couple weeks ago. We shared it, and we've already had well over a dozen districts say, we want to meet with you. And we didn't create this for any other reason than to help education. We looked at our data, we followed our thing, and this is just an example of us going through that process I mentioned earlier. I had no idea we were going to create Evelyn. But we saw the data, we saw the need, and we said, how can AI help us? How can we think differently about education? This is a cost-effective tool that reduces workloads. It can save districts money, and it provides instant feedback to teachers rather than the standard, okay, let's meet next week. And you've had 25 lessons in between there, and now you're trying to think back to that lesson plan when it's not fresh, right? Like, we need to be able to see what happens. Like, evaluations are too often compliant. They should be a coaching opportunity, a professional dialogue about practice. And that's what Evelyn helps happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm truly excited because, again, the opportunity to be able to kind of bridge the gap between evaluation to teaching and have those two things happen in near real time, right? So if you've got essentially an evaluation that tells you, hey, you've got to reframe the way that you're doing it, but then you've got the tools to be able to do it, right? You're no longer like saying, okay, well, that's great. I've got the evaluation that I'm screwing up in here, here, and here, and here. Now, where do I go and what do I pull to get it done? It's at your fingertips, right? So I think the partnership that is more around this, the solving problems rather than just picking tools off the shelf and saying you should try this, you should try that, creates a pathway to success. Whether you're talking about a international teacher or like you said, a Gen Z teacher that's new to the classroom, but it's also really has that kind of the work life balance in their head, regardless from you've essentially are completing the cycle and making them better at what they do. Which at the end of the day, that's really what they want. They want to get better at what they do, because they love the job. They're passionate about what they're doing. They wouldn't do it for any other reason. That's I haven't talked to a single teacher that wasn't really mission driven to do the best thing. They don't get into this for the wonderful pay and for the for the parents to be all raving about them. None of that happens. They do it because they're truly passionate about, and they it's a calling, like you said from the very beginning. This is kind of like bridging what you said at the beginning. It is a calling. Um, so that's truly exciting. And from our perspective, we also feel that, one of the things that I think is really important in our partnership is how do we build a framework for long-term success for teachers, right? How do we give them tools not to think about what lesson do they think about, the next day or the next week, but how do they create this essential roadmap for themselves to be successful, right? So they're not, always thinking short term and how do I just get through the next day, but thinking about, okay, well, let's, even some of them have never worked on a scope and sequence. How do I build out that scope and sequence for them myself, knowing I've got to work through these standards, how that I have to make sure that I teach these lessons, also bring in the opportunity for evaluation so I can actually course correct and have the ability to be able to make the changes along the way for the course correction. um, and I'm just again, Jeff. I'm super honored and excited about this partnership and this transformational journey. I think is it's going to be different from district to district, but I really hope folks are listening because there is a pathway. We talk about the fact that the budgets are smaller. Well, and guess what? You've been successful at that too. You've been, there's, conversations about, oh, curriculums are too static and there's not enough there for us to be able to kind of keep buying that every single year. And, HQIM is not there. Teachers are not, reading it. They're not paying attention. Like there's a lot of problems, but there's not a lot of kind of conversations. And when you start having the conversations with the people that you've been that all along, whether it's staff, whether it's teachers, when you start having those conversations, you start coming up with some really practical, straightforward solutions. And I think that's where the conversation, the kind of the shifting, I'm thinking about AI as, okay, here's just another thing that I've got to learn, or it's going to take away my job, to actually having it be a conduit to have that, to have success. And I believe, as an AI company, right, as an AIT, company in the teaching space, there is no substitute for a teacher in the classroom. I'll go down with Teachally to the end of, this is, I believe it. It's, for me, that is a calling, right? So how, it's an opportunity for teachers to be successful so that they can deliver better instruction to students, and kind of the laser focus on that and using these technologies, which are transformative, but using AI to be able to deliver that. I think across the board, whether it's for training, whether it's for evaluation as assessment, whether it's for creation of high quality instructional materials, all the way through to student evaluation. Someday, though, I think that's one of those things that I think a lot of teachers are struggling with right now. But all that entire continuum, I think, it has the opportunity to be transformed for the benefit of district, for the benefit of teachers, and at the end of the day, for the benefit of this country and students that call public school they're really their home, right? So I think that's something that I think you're passionate about. I'm passionate about, and like I said, I am so honored and so happy to have partnered with you over these years. I look forward to the partnership growing, and what it can really deliver, for Southwest Metro and for the rest of this country as well. I mean, it's your district administration superintendent of the year for 2026, and not surprised. You've done some amazing things, and truly happy. And thank you so much, Jeff. Any last thoughts as kind of you leave this program?
You know, I just like to say too that in our work together, I've just been really, not just myself, our entire team has been so impressed at the continual growth of Teach Ally, and how you just continually are trying to find that like next way to help in using emerging technologies to help educators. And I think the partnership between private sector, public sector is so important, as we're all trying to help students, and we need each other in that space. And when we have questions or wonderings, we're like, hey, like we've noticed this piece of it. Our team has just been extremely impressed, like how quickly you take feedback and are like, hey, I just want to, like you said, it's your passion. I don't know that you're a Gen Zer. I feel like you're the all weekend. I'm sun up to sundown. So I feel like that's because we feel that. So thank you for your work. Uh, sorry, Gen Zs. Don't mean to pick on you a little bit there, but just really a compliment on the responsiveness you've had for really finding new ways to meet students' needs. And we're finding success in online schools, career and technical education, setting for special education programs, and everything in between. Like it's amazing, and I thank you for the congrats on the Superintendent of the Year piece. But it's really, I feel like that's a reflection of our community's work. It's your partner in that work, and that's part of you too. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Horton, Jeff. I've called you Jeff,
Just funny.
but yeah, I really appreciate everything that you've done, and look forward to many many more years of great partnership and the things that we can do transformatively together. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.